Good morning, Afia, and many congratulations to Itiviti on winning the Equity Trading System of the Year category of the Asia Capital Markets Awards 2020. Before we move on to discuss the Itiviti sell-side order management system, perhaps you could tell me a little bit about yourself and provide a quick overview of Itiviti's operations in Asia and globally.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy, and good morning. Thank you for having me. I personally and we as a firm are very excited about winning this award. It means a lot to us. It definitely helps push our brand out there and is a combination of a lot of hard work by many people, to get us to where we are. So tell you a little bit about myself. I actually joined Itiviti about 3 years ago. I came from the broker-dealer side. I was my last role, I was heading an execution desk, an electronic execution desk at a large global broker-dealer. And when I think of one of the understandings or insights I had back then is that the world is really changing. And the world is changing because we are seeing that it's becoming more and more about execution. And it's becoming also more and more about having the buy side have control over execution. And a lot of those changes were actually driven by a wish to have better control of the quality of execution. And as a result of that, you saw a lot more automation and electronic trading coming to the front. And really, that's what brought me to pick myself up, move myself as the head of the region. At the time, it was called Ulink, which was later acquired by Itiviti, and really be at the forefront of a vendor that produces systems that their goal and their life is all about execution. And really what Itiviti is, what we focus ourselves around, is the trading and execution life cycle, predominantly on the sell side, although we do have some products that touch on prop trading and buy side. But on the sell side, we cover the gamut of the execution, for cash equities, for listed derivatives, futures, ETFs. And that is both, from an agency execution angle, that is a broker executing on behalf of institutional clients, but also from a market making perspective, and that is providing liquidity into the market. So, if I had to sum up what is Itiviti kind of in one sentence, we're really a technology vendor that is focused on, and I would even say obsessed about, improving the quality and efficiency of execution at brokers and banks.
So perhaps a little more specifically now on Asia, before we move on to the award itself, would you say are your key achievements there to date?
So, over the past few years, we've really expanded our footprint in Asia. We've now have our OMS really present all the way from, from India through to Japan. One of the unique things I would say about Itiviti is we have a very large and strong footprint, both within Japan with onshore institutions, as well as in China. And you don't find a lot of these types of vendors, especially in Asia, one that have a global footprint, but also we've got close to 20 clients in China. We've got over 20 clients in Japan, and then we actually cover the whole gamut of Asia. So we have a number of large clients in Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, and now also, one of the latest ones we've added is the Philippines. So we've got very good geographical coverage, as well as, over 20 clients in Australia of the region. So we've really been busy with extending our footprint in Asia and really fitting the product, the OMS product and our market making product to the region, to the specifics and the market microstructure and the regulation in Asia, which in some cases, especially when you look at the electronic space, is relatively advanced and has moved a lot more, definitely since Hong Kong came up with its electronic regulation in 2014, than other regions in the world, which actually makes, sometimes everybody's life a bit more difficult because, while you're trying to manage cost on one hand and at the same time deal with a ever more complex regulatory environment, you have to turn into technology. And that's really been our focus in APAC, fitting our global product so clients in Asia can access both the local market, but also have a global vendor that can service them in Europe and America.
Thank you, Afir. Now let's move on to the reason for the award, Itiviti's sell-side OMS. Could you briefly describe the system to me?
Yes, so a sell-side OMS, on the face of it is a very simple product. It's effectively a trading blotter. It allows traders to accept orders from institutional investors, be it large asset managers, insurance company, endowment funds, in an electronic manner, and then execute them, trade them on the market. So on the face of it, all OMSs would provide that functionality. What we do in addition is we allow for a large degree of automation. And really what the OMS is about, it's about being able to, one, take those orders in a seamless manner, two, manage them, manage the performance throughout the day, and really be focused on how you're executing the order. In that, you have to have access to multiple venues, access to multiple pools of liquidity. So there's a lot of, I'd say, bits and bobs in the background that makes the systems very complex. But from the foreground, when you look at it, it's really, as it sounds, a system to take in orders and manage them on the market.
So you've touched on this a little, but if you could sort of crystallize down what are its unique selling points, what really differentiates it in the marketplace, and perhaps give us some idea of the key benefits to users, that would be very interesting. Thank you.
So as I said, on the face of it, they're all the same, but then you start to come to, the details, and the devil's always in the details. The first thing I would say, and really what attracted me as somebody that managed an execution desk for a broker about the Itiviti solution, is it's new, it's built on new technology, and it was built from, I say, the paradigm of having low-touch execution. What is low-touch execution? Low-touch execution is essentially allowing your clients to send orders into algos or directly to the market. Where before, when you look at the older regime, it was orders coming into a trader on a trading desk with some instructions, usually over the phone or over some other media, could be email, could be chat, with instruction on how to execute that. The world over the past 15 years has been slowly and then acceleratingly moving away from that paradigm. It's been moving to a paradigm where also on the buy side you have an OMS, and orders are now sent directly either into the market or through an algorithmic or an automation engine that automatically execute that order. Most of the solutions you'll find, almost all the solutions you will find out there today, definitely from the large vendors, are built on the premise that they've taken a system that takes those orders that are supposed to come to a trader, and then they augmented the system to the new age of what we call low-touch execution. Itiviti came to it because they came kind of last to the game from a completely different angle. And first of all, built a system that is really geared towards low-touch execution. So much higher volumes, much faster system with a lot less fail points on the way to allow the orders to flow smoothly. So one of the key, I'd say, differentiator is the fact that you've built a system from the ground up for today's trading, not for the trading that was done a decade or 2 decades ago. The other differentiator is the thinking point. When you're running a low-touch desk, you're really running a system that is about managing exceptions. So it's management by exception rather than a lot of, manual management. What you want to do is you want to be able to capture quickly things that go wrong, orders that don't, go to the market because they have little issues with them, prices are off, security name is incorrect. Be able to fix that quickly and release the order on its way without interrupting the flow of the orders into the market, because obviously time is money. So that is one of the, I would say, key differentiator of our system, is that it's really geared to do that. It's geared to do management by exception. And then on top of that, of course, you can do all the, what I call the old world workflows. You could still execute manually, you can still trade on the market, you can still do all those things. But the system from the ground up was built for management by exception. Now, the third, I'd say, differentiator we have is the vast network we have via the integration with NYFIX. So we are connected to, over 800 buy-sides. In addition, we're connected to over 700 brokers. And overall, the system has over 200 venues, liquidity venues, that is direct market access that you can use it for. So it's really a huge network behind this that allows us to connect both buy side and sell side. And I'd say that is the third differentiator. One of the last ones, which we are really started working on recently, is the adding the AI, or basically adding artificial intelligence into the onboarding of clients. And that is to really make the onboarding of new buy side or sell side to the system, to the fixed connectivity engine, a lot faster, more efficient, and a lot smoother.
Thank you. So you mentioned this earlier, but let's perhaps drill down a little bit. This obviously is Asia Capital Markets. And so it'd be interesting to know perhaps a little bit about specific challenges to your users in Asia and what benefits to the markets your system brings.
So again, I think, when you talk about Asia, it's always easiest to start with the challenges. The first one is Asia is not one cohesive market. I love it when my colleagues say, oh, we'll adjust it to the Asia time zone. I'm going, what Asia time zone? We've got a lot of time zones here. So, Asia is really not a cohesive market in the sense, that it does not trade on a single currency. It does not trade under, even in a single market. When you look at the US, it's really a single market. When you look at Europe, yes, you've got multiple markets, but again, what you have in Europe and you don't have in Asia is you have a very cohesive regulatory regime. In Asia, it depends what you decide to include in Asia, but it's anywhere between 13 and 16 jurisdictions, which have different markets, different market microstructure, different regulation. That presents a lot of challenges because the workflows kind of change based on the market itself, the regulation in that market, and so on. So it obviously presents a lot of challenges for our, product team in building all these unique workflow. We've added Philippines recently. Again, Philippines have their own unique workflow. The market has its own unique demands, and a lot of that was where the challenges are. Now, we've talked a little bit about regulation. We've talked about challenges. I think what we see in Asia that is, you now kind of get a taste of it, I think, elsewhere in the world, is that it's, in a lot of places, it's very much a retail-driven market. So while we provide system predominantly for institutions, one of the key important ingredients to remember is that still a lot of our clients, a lot of the banks, have retail clients streaming orders through a retail system that ends up in an institutional system. Now, with what we've seen now, happening during the pandemic, is you've seen retail flows, explode in the US. But we've had always very, very high retail flows in Asia. And again, it requires you to have an OMS that can actually handle large institutional orders, but at the same time, be able to cater for, lower, smaller retail orders that pass through it, which create, again, a lot of executions that you need to be able to manage, monitor, and do in a timely manner.
And you touched on something there that I was going to ask you as one of my final questions, which was what is driving markets. And I suspect COVID-19 might be one of those things which you mentioned. So I wondered perhaps if you could give me some sense of how you see the market developing in relation to your plans there.
Yes. Let's start from, the 100,000 foot view. So if you really look at what's been happening in capital markets over the last, say, 2 decades, there's been a lot of change and a lot of push into what we call electronic trading. A lot of people think that the change for that, and electronic trading, I use it now as a generic term, to more automated way of executing orders. A lot of people think, this is all because, people were trying to cut costs. And cost was part of the story, and it became maybe more of a focus after the global financial crisis, but that was not where the starting point was. The starting point was that the world moved slowly, but more, again, accelerating more and more to a lot more passive investing. That is, if you look globally, a lot more investors are buying index type products. And index type products, one of the interesting key way to look at them is that your decision in what to invest is pretty much being made by the index. But now it really comes down to how well you execute it. And that is where the quality of execution becomes a very important factor. And that is something that has happened, started really to happen, probably in the early to mid 2000s, but we're seeing much more of that effect going through now. Now you see this happen in cash equities. The quality of execution became a very important factor. When the quality of execution becomes an important factor, it becomes very important, how you trade. So a broker is much more focused on, and also the buy side is much more focused on how you trade, what's the quality of the execution, how do you access liquidity, what liquidity pools can you get me access to. What we've seen happen first to cash equities is now spreading into other asset classes. It is definitely already, on the way into listed derivatives. It's now making its way into fixed income. And to some extent, it also got into FX. I would say the progressively more complex problems are definitely listed derivatives, more complex than cash equities, but less complex than FX. Again, from a system perspective, fixed income, much more complex than FX. Multiple reasons, it's the number of products, it's the location of the liquidity, the fact that there's not a centralized market for a lot of these asset classes. But this is really where we're seeing the growth going. And this is one of the key things we're doing in Itiviti, is we're actually now investing heavily into expanding much more into the fixed income and FX world, really to integrate our OMS capability into that world, because we believe that the trading desks of banks and brokers will become more and more electronified or automated, exactly like what happened with cash equities to these asset classes over time.
And you mentioned expansion plans, notably fixed income and FX, and you've talked about Asia and you're even into the Philippines. Are you going to continue to penetrate the region and expand your footprint there? And are you going to follow a similar strategy in other jurisdictions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, the company's base is really European. It's a European company, and that is where our biggest market is at this point. So, all these trends that I'm describing to you, they're happening in Asia, but they're also happening in Europe. They're also happening in the U.S., and we're absolutely operating in all those regions in parallel. I've mentioned the Philippines, because this is kind of a novelty, but we've done over 4 OMS deals in the last year in Hong Kong and Singapore. So we absolutely, this is kind of our bread and butter market. Hong Kong, Singapore, markets we operated for many years, and we'll absolutely continue to operate in those markets and continue to expand our footprint in them. I think always when you talk to a global, what I call foreign vendor in Asia, it's interesting to see not only how you operate in the core markets, which are usually looked at, the English-speaking markets like Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, to some extent, sometimes Japan, but how do you operate in more complex markets like China, Japan, Indonesia? So yeah, we were absolutely, expanding in all of these. We're taking the toolkit there, we're customizing the toolkit for those markets so that we can have a seamless offering, regardless if you're sitting in London and trading on the London Stock Exchange, or sitting in Jakarta and trading on the Indonesian Stock Exchange.
Thank you. I've got one final question, which is very specific to your sell-side OMS before we finish. I wondered whether you were expecting to see an explosion of business, or are already seeing an explosion of business, given that it's September, due to Bloomberg's decision to pull out of the equities OMS market. I understand that September was the kind of cut-off date because it would take 3 to 6 months for companies to onboard. And as a final thought, I wondered if you could give us some insights on that from Itiviti's point of view.
Yes, absolutely. So it's we almost jumped from joy when we heard the news initially 2 years ago that Bloomberg decided to exit that market. It's always good to be able, to pick up some of your competitors, clients. I will say at the same time that we not only picked up some of our competitors' clients, but we also picked up some of the people. So those people, that ended up, not necessarily finding a place. We actually found a great home for many of them within Itiviti. So what we've seen is they initially slowly, but I'd say in the past year, much more aggressively, clients of CIOMs have been looking for alternative solutions. And you're absolutely right. I guess the deadline for moving off the Bloomberg CIOM system is April of 2021. And you do need between 3 and 6 months for this migration. It depends how much you've customized around their OMS. The more you've customized, the more time you need. We've done globally a number of deals that are tied to that. The numbers I have, we've picked up about 25 to 30%, depending on the jurisdiction, of the previous CIOMs clients as Itiviti clients, and we've done a few of these in Asia, and we're still actually in the midst of working in at least 1 or 2, which really kind of the deadline we set ourselves is we need to finalize the deal in October, because after that it will become too late. Not too late in terms of, you could still use the CIOM system, but it will just become too late to migrate. You'll end up having, as a broker, if you're using CIOMs and you're still on it in December and you have not picked up a replacement, most likely you're going to have a few months where you're going to have to work either with pen and paper or some Excel spreadsheet, which is going to be very, very painful. So yes, if you're late to this game, I would certainly urge anybody that's listening to this to go and quickly find an alternative solution.
Thank you, Ophir. It's been a pleasure to interview you, and congratulations once again on the award.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I'm very happy that we won this award, and I appreciate everything the FOW has done to help us.